She texted at 6:42 p.m. "Can't make it tonight." I texted back, "Sure." Then I ordered dinner for two, paid in my name, to an address my wife should never be at. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I didn't shout, didn't break a thing. Tech support teaches you control, calm voices while others panic. That night, I debugged my marriage. Rachel's email chimed mid-packing, a flight to Boston, a networking reunion, a fresh account for work expenses. All the data aligned too perfectly. I reread it, hoping it might glitch into innocence. It didn't. Logan Pierce. Loud, charming, still chasing spotlights. Rachel once called him fun. She'd stopped saying it to me. I ordered dinner to his loft, under my name. "Call out pay or name," I wrote. I wanted her to hear it, to freeze. I watched from my car as the courier climbed the stairs, called Evan Cole. Her hand paused on the door. The courier murmured, "You said he didn't know." She didn't close it. I didn't knock, didn't scream. I just walked away. Her phone hitting the floor behind me was confession enough. I didn't confront her. Efficiency needed a face. I made a spreadsheet. Evidence, action. Pulled the bank CSV before she could revoke access. Transfers matched her texts. One wire equaled 3 nights at the resort she liked. Snagged the PNR from the email header. Find My history still showed shared locations. Traces everywhere. I rang Toby at the repair shop by Joyland. Greasy rides, a creaky ticket booth. He handed me a GoPro and a grin. "Keep it legal, Ev. Make them trip on their own shoes." Legal was my line. I'd stay inside it and make them pay. I went to Logan's under the pretense of returning a receipt Rachel left in my car last fall. A small, plausible thing. He answered before I could knock. The loft smelled of takeout and expensive soap. Logan smiled like a man who expects applause. "You, Evan? Rachel mentioned you once," he said, half curiosity, half show. "Yeah," I said. "I found this in my glove box. Thought you should have it." He reached for the paper like it was a trophy. We brushed hands. He pulled. His fingers closed on my phone on the table. He flipped it open. Curiosity turned to a leer. "What's this?" he asked. "Nothing," I said, and his grin made it honest. He turned, heading down the stairwell to the lobby as if he had some right to parade his small victory. I followed to the landing, where the light hummed and the stairs smelled faintly of wet wool. He clutched my phone, thumb playing my lock screen like a gambler touching chips. When he hesitated at the bottom, I reached and tapped the recorder I'd tucked into my collar. He muttered to himself, he didn't know. And I smiled into the mic. His words were small, brittle, and careless. He lunged then, not with measured force, but with the kind of surprise anger that looks good in fights but poorly in life. I shoved him back along the banister. He grabbed the rail and cursed, a soft sound. We didn't tumble. The shove was a punctuation, not a sentence. I left with my phone and my receipt. On the ride home, I listened to the audio. Logan's voice was there, brittle and careless. I started where any sensible person would. Bank disputes and a change of address. I disputed the joint card charges as unauthorized withdrawals for business expenses, not a fraud claim. An insistence that the funds were misapplied without explainable mutual consent. The bank placed a temporary hold while they investigated. It bought me time. I moved my paycheck to a new account overnight. I swapped the utilities into a new login tied to my email. Simple things. She came home that night and the lights were dimmer. "The power went out during the storm," she said, but the thermostat panel glowed my name when she tapped it. I had left the divorce packet on the kitchen island. No flourishes, just the forms and the attorney's letterhead. Her face burned like a page. She picked it up, thumb fumbling the corner. "You filed?" she asked. "I started the process," I said. "You drained the account, Rachel. I had to secure household funds." Her phone buzzed. Mara, her friend, firing off a string of heart emojis and gossip. I took a picture of the screen, blurred faces, saved it. Social proof is a wet match. Airports have a calm brutality. People staging departures forget for a moment that someone's life is about to rearrange. I chose Logan's booking because it was the one Rachel tried to hide. Terminal B at Logan's crowded. The curbside is noise and rolling wheels and strangers who can be the world's best witnesses. I wore a coat and carried a small bag with nothing but a toothbrush. I'm a man who thinks in steps. Careful is a muscle. They arrived late. Logan had his overconfident swagger, and Rachel clutched her carry-on like a shield. I walked up as if to ask a dumb question. Is this the right line? And instead handed Rachel the attorney's stamped copy of the filing. Someone behind them spat out coffee. Logan's jaw closed like a trap. "You can't," he began, and reached for me. The hand gesture was the kind you use to stop someone on the street. I stepped aside, and his momentum carried him into the metal stanchion with a thud. People looked. Logan tried to make a scene. The security guard moved like a slow animal toward us. Outside, in the deck, I let him chase me just far enough. He ran on adrenaline and pride. He slipped on a painted line and hit the asphalt with a sound I will always like. He scrambled up and came at me. I slapped him once across the face. It rang loud in the car park like a bell. Not to break, only to burn pride. He tried to stand taller and failed. You can take a person from their life not by breaking their bones, but by removing the scaffolding that holds them up. I sent an innocuous email to a group of Rachel's contacts, bringing up the wrong rooftop and attaching a photo with a single hand, a ring, and a receipt. The caption read, "Delivery courtesy of Evan. People are a slow machine. Gossip is grease." Within hours, she had calls from partners and clients asking if she was okay, people she thought were allies whispering about discretion. Mara's messages shifted tone from supportive to defensive. Her circle closed for a moment and then began to shift away. Her company pinged her. "We need to discuss a potential conflict of interest." Her travel card failed at a restaurant. Logan's lease agency called about an overdue parking violation. Their little edifice of convenience began to crumble where it rested on cash and casual favors. Toby's repair shop smelled of grease and summers long past. The neon outside blinked like a tired eye. Logan shadowed Rachel into our life and thought himself untouchable. I asked Toby to help me retrieve a spare key Logan left in the gym locker, his valet habit, and Toby raised an eyebrow and did what friends do. Legally gray and morally clean. He didn't pick a lock. He watched a door left open. Logan's car started to betray him. I ordered a stink packet online, non-toxic, neon-smelling humiliation. I eased into petty, public ruin. The first time he ran the AC, the car coughed and he swore, and then 2 officers filed a noise complaint down the street. He fixed it once with a mechanic bill and told friends an excuse about a faulty condenser. They nodded and then tilted their heads. A man's reputation is a brittle thing, built like a paper sculpture on a draft. You tilt the table and watch which parts hold. It came down to late and neon and the smell of tire rubber. I packed a duffel with 3 shirts and a toothbrush and went to Toby's place. Logan wanted to make a final show of strength, a last attempt to institute fear. He cornered me outside under a sodium lamp where the ride rig hummed like an old beast. His chest rose and fell with adrenaline. He said my name like an accusation. "Stay away from my wife," he said. I let the words land. "She's not your property," I said. There was no heat in me to explain. The moon did the work. Logan swung. He moved like a man who thought he owned the moment. I stepped in, moved with a kind of tired speed, and shouldered him into a stack of tires. The impact wasn't pretty. It was sufficient. He cursed and lunged again. I grabbed the key from his hand. Toby had duplicated a valet tag earlier, a favor returned inexact. I ran the key across his driver's door twice, slow and deliberate, a line that left silver scars. I didn't break his face. I broke the things he used to buy confidence. I took the spare and tossed it to the gutter where rain would swallow it, and some stranger might find it and laugh. He fell to his knees and cursed at me like a child. Rachel came running from the lot, breathing fast, mascara streaked and hair in a mess. She tried to touch my arm. Her phone buzzed again. HR. Why? She asked, raw. Because you left with his name and not with the truth, I said. Because you drained us and then asked me to back your story. Because you chose to burn our life for a weekend. She reached for me, like a person begging God not to be real. Logan screamed at me, a sound I'd heard before and never wanted to again. The ride rig behind us kicked to life. Toby had keyed it accidentally when he came out, and the neon threw red light over the whole thing like a theater cue. I stood there in the light, rain beginning to wash the skid marks from the asphalt, and I let them have the noise. No police handcuffs, no prison. They had their names and their ruined lease and the smell in Logan's car and the missed emails and the HR messages and the stares. They had loss that couldn't be fixed with an apology. I left before the police decided to ask questions. There's a law in patience. If you do the right amount of wrong, people will believe you when you say you never intended harm. I had covered the edges of everything. I paid for a consultation with a lawyer who specializes in family law. I did the papers properly. I filed within the rules. I followed procedure until the record would show procedure, not spectacle. I should say this. Every step was a calculation, not cruelty. There is a difference. Cruelty punches and forgets. Calculation wedges a new reality into place until the old one collapses under its own weight. I told myself that 1,000 times while setting the traps. I slept badly, but sleep is an overvalued commodity when your life is a ledger. The bank's investigator was helpful only in the way bank procedures are helpful. Anonymous, procedural, patient, with forms. I filled out a dispute form that required me to detail why charges were questionable. I didn't invent. I documented. I attached screenshots, timestamps, and the PNR. They froze the suspicious transfers on the joint account while asking for proof. That pause was enough for me to reroute my salary. A pause is a small gift. I took it. At home, I started to leave small, truthful artifacts that would erode her confidence in the illusion she'd built. Not notices, just small measures. Her gym notifications logged to my email, a copy of a calendar invite where she invited Logan to review creative decks. The subject line was vague on purpose. I printed it, folded it, and left it under the dish towels where she would find it without looking for evidence. People don't look for truth in the places they hide it. There were nights I wanted to call her out in public, to make the alley bright with accusation. But anger is a blunt instrument, and I am not a man with the stomach for spectacle. My barbs were precise. I called Logan once and asked him in a conversational tone whether he liked Italian food. "You planning to cater?" he said, laughing. "No," I told him. "Just curious. We'll give the delivery guy a name to call out if he ever forgets who he owes." He chuckled and hung up. I let the laugh sit in the phone like an echo. When Rachel opened the divorce packet in the kitchen, the sound was like paper dropping. She asked about lawyers like a person asking directions. "You don't have to do this here?" I said. "We can sit and explain," she said, but she wanted the explanation like a child wants a bandage, quick and painless. It doesn't work that way. At the airport, people became extras in a small play I didn't script. A woman on a business call turned and stared as Rachel clutched the envelopes. An elderly man in a cap muttered something about relationships being complicated and went back to his crossword. An off-duty flight attendant watched with polite curiosity. The moment grew teeth. I watched Logan try to compose his face into something respectable and fail. Security's questions were the same for everyone. "Sir, step aside." They asked Logan about the scuffle, and he told an almost true story with the courage of someone half intoxicated by bravado. The deck cameras catch everything in grainy light. I knew which angle would make him look smaller. I'd reviewed the footage later with Toby, who has a good eye for framing. "Make sure your face is calm in the clips," he said. "People who look balled up in their anger lose credibility." I took his advice. The smell in Logan's car after the stink packet had a ridiculous animal quality to it. He cursed and called the mechanic. He tried to laugh it off with guys at the gym, and they laughed with him while their eyes slid when they thought I couldn't see. A man's reputation is a brittle thing. You tilt the table and watch which parts hold. After the parking deck slap, Logan texted threats. He called my work once. HR was kind when they had to be. They informed me that if the personal matter escalated, they would prefer I take leave. I didn't. I turned the texts into a file, and then into a printed packet that would later look like the timeline of a man unraveling. I kept my own paperwork tidy. It's a small cruelty to keep receipts. Rachel's calls to Mara shifted from defensive to panicked. I saw the timestamps. She called Mara twice from the car on the way home, then texted the group with a single message. "Something's wrong. Evan filed." They responded with shocked faces and then a flurry of what-ifs. Gossip seizes on blanks and fills them with color. When my email to the circle landed, whether intended or not, rumor made it something worse. Her phone blew up with DMs and then with polite requests to meet later. People will excuse. Then they will distance. I never wanted anyone physically hurt. I wanted their comforts to be the things that deserted them. Logan's lease was non-refundable on certain points. The parking fines piled. Branded clients paused contracts when they saw the rumor started by photographs. We do business with faces we've vetted. Her face had lost its quiet trust. Toby said, "You know what the worst part is? They'll find ways to blame each other first." He was right. They did. The lovers clawed at blame like people do when fire approaches. There were moments when Rachel looked at me, not with hatred, but with a kind of exhausted pleading. I had no answers that would fix what she broke. People who build their lives from casual betrayals don't get the luxury of a clean end. When I keyed Logan's door, I didn't revel. There is no horned glory in petty revenge. I stood in the rain and made a mark. The marks were visible and humiliating and would take days, maybe weeks, to repair. Then they would notice strangers' stares. Strangers are final in ways family isn't. Their judgment doesn't come with a map for recovery. He screamed my name like a prayer and then like an accusation. Rachel sobbed and cursed and dropped the divorce packet onto the hood of his car as if that was all she had left. The lot smelled of wet rubber and ozone. Toby came out and left the neon on. He had his own quiet smile. He knows what it is to see someone learn a lesson without breaking them. I left before the police decided to ask questions. There's a law in patience. If you do the right amount of wrong, people will believe you when you say you never intended harm. I had covered the edges of everything. I paid for a consultation with a lawyer who specializes in family law. I did the papers properly. I filed within the rules. I followed procedure until the record would show procedure, not spectacle. Walking home that night, the rain started for real. I didn't look back. The image of Rachel under the sodium light stayed with me. A small silhouette against red. A woman who had chosen a story that required erasing a marriage to read. I had no illusions about happiness. I had only the ledger closed and a city that would whisper about them for a while. I didn't forgive. I finished.